Okay, so we've got this drum kit working, well, the first three letters anyway. You guys can add the F, G, H, J, K, and L. Look at those nice orders. Okay, but what I wanted to show you is how to add a cool animation to this so that when we hit the key, it'll get bigger, add a border, and then when it's done, it'll go back again. So kind of like you're hitting the drum, right? All right, so to do that, this definitely is not like core curriculum, and if you don't know how to do this, you're going to fail this class, but it's just really fun. So I'm going to go to my style sheet here. Well, first of all, remember that we've got these divs. So each of these boxes is a div, and they are in the have a class called key. In your style sheet, notice how we've got this key class right here, and we've got these styles on it. That's fine. I'll talk about this transition in a second and explain what that does. But I also want you to notice this dot plane. Actually, let's cut that and put that up here so it's closer to the dot key. So this dot plane class, if I search this document, I hit Control F, and I look for plane, there's no results. I'm not using the class yet. But what I want to do is I want to use JavaScript to add this plane class to a key element whenever I hit that specific key. All right? So what's going to happen when I add this class? Well, CSS has a cool property called transform, and I can go scale 1.1. Basically, scaling, it scales it. Right? If I put 2 in here, it would become twice as big. 1.1 increases it by 10%. Right? So it makes it a little bit bigger. And then I add a border color and a box shadow of the same color. Okay, so add a border and a box shadow. So that's what I want it to look like. When I add this class, I want to get a little bigger and add a border and some box shadow. All right. So to do that, let's go here, and each of these divs have an ID that matches the letter that's played. Okay, so that's going to help me select this individual div. So in my main.js, if I have this, play the A clap, I also want to, in addition to doing the audio, I'm going to go, what am I going to do? Document.get element by ID, A, like that. So that should get this div element right here. And every element has a class list. Right now, the class list would include key. And I can go to this class list and say .add. And I'm going to add, in quotations, the name of the class called plane. Okay, whew! So I get this div, I access its class list property, and I add the class plane to it. Let's see what that does. All right, watch this div here. Cool. So it plays the sound, and it added that div. Awesome. So that wouldn't be too hard now to just add this to all of the other ones as well. All I need to do is change this to class S, right? S for hi-hat. And when I go here, now I go A, S, D doesn't do anything yet, but I could add that as well. Okay, so that's great. And if I refresh, it goes away and it adds whenever I need to do it. Now you'll notice too that there's a bit of a delay there, and that's where this transition comes in. Transition all 0.1 seconds. So all is just basically saying when anything about this key class, any element with the key class, if anything is changed, anything that can be animated, there's certain elements that can't be animated, but if there's a property that can be animated, it's going to transition. It's going to take 0.1 seconds. Let's change that to 2 seconds, 2s, and you should see now that if I refresh this and I hit A, 1, 2, S, 1, 2, right? So what I want you to understand, what's happening here is that the JavaScript is adding this plane class, which means that these divs here are changing, right? I'm adding to that div, I'm adding these this transform and the border color. So it's going to apply this transition, and it's going to take 2 seconds, which is way too long. I think I had, 0.1 seconds? I think that was more of a because when you're nailing these keys, it's not refreshing enough for me. Anyway, it goes a little faster. Okay, now, hopefully that makes sense. This transition just kind of smooths it in. If I didn't have this transition, let's comment that out, Control/ to comment it out, you would see that it just happens right away. It just appears. It scales up and away we go. Okay, what else do we want to do? Okay, now the problem is I want this to disappear, right? I want it to animate and become, like I hit it, I want it to animate and then disappear again once the animation's done, essentially. So to do that, we're going to go to our JavaScript, and I've got this event listener stuff. I'm going to go down below here, and I'm going to add transition end listeners. So we have all these different events like click and key down. What I need to do is I need to select my element, so document.get element by ID A. So that's my A tag, and I'm going to add an event listener, and the event I'm going to add is transition end. Okay, and I will call a function called remove plane. All right, so transition end listeners, and here's my transition end function. So remove plane. So basically what this is doing is saying, hey, okay, when this element A, when it finishes a transition, right, when a transition ends, I'm going to call this function remove plane. So what I need to do is I need to say, okay, here's another big concept. I need to select the element that this transition end happened. Well, let's just do this. Document.get element by ID A dot class list dot remove plane. Right? So when the A element, the A div, finishes transition, I'm going to actually say, okay, now I want you to remove the plane class. So it's gone. All right, let's try that. That did not work. Okay. What happened? So no error messages. I'm obviously just missing something. So we are, let's make sure we're doing this right, that we are adding plane to these elements. The transition, oh, here's what it is. The transition is happening on this key. Oh, and I turned the transition off. Maybe that's the problem. Let's try to see if that fixes it. So make sure we refresh that. There we go. Cool. So when you hit it, it adds the plane class, does the transition. Once the transition ends, it removes the class and transitions away. Cool. And that could actually be a little, it seems a little slow. We could actually go 0. Actually, it's fine. But you can play around with it. You can go 0.07 seconds or something like that to make it faster. And you can play around with that. I think that's fine. So now that's neat. It plays a sound, but it also gives you that visible feedback that, yes, I hit that. Okay. Now we're going to have some complications. We're going to have to change something. Because if I try to do this for get element by ID S, I've got a problem because I'm going to need a remove plane, like this would be remove plane A. Remove plane A. I would then need another function called remove plane S. And that would select S here. Right? Because I need to select different elements. So that works. That's great. But man, I'm going to have, how many keys do I have? And each key needs its own function. I'm going to show you a little JavaScript, a powerful thing in JavaScript called this. This refers to the, it's a JavaScript keyword that refers to the thing that owns the code. So what I'm going to suggest is I'm going to, ooh, this is going to be tricky. I'm going to leave this here. I'm just going to have a remove plane. I'm going to comment this out and get rid of that. I just want one function. And I'm just going to do a console.log this. Not in quotations. It's actually kind of like a variable, right? A JavaScript keyword. It stores information. So let's see what happens in my console when I press A. Oh dear, look at all these things. Okay, so it did a div with the ID A. When I hit S, it prints out a div with the ID S. D, I don't have anything happening on a D. S and A are the only ones that are working. Okay, so what I wanted you to see there, that this is storing when I do remove plane, the remove plane function knows which event listener called it, which element called it. So the A or the S element. So what I should be able to do is, instead of going document.getElementById, by I should be able to go this .ClassList. And this will be like, hey, remove plane was called by the A element, so this should refer to the A div. When I call remove plane from the S element, this should be, JavaScript will save the S div as the element that called it in this. Cross my fingers and let's hope this works. Perfect. Okay. So now what's awesome is that I just need that one remove plane, and I can just change the add event listener ASD, and it should work. Why doesn't that work? It should work. Okay, let's see what happened. D, maybe I don't. Oh, because I don't have this set up. Right? When I press D, I didn't add the adding the class plane. So because it didn't add the class plane, it didn't transition, so it didn't have a transition end. Right? But now if I add the class plane, it should have a cool. Okay, that's awesome. All right, so I just did the first three. Your guys' job is to add the rest of them and have some fun, play around with this. Okay. Wow. Quick review. We add this plane class to transform, make it a little bigger, add some color. Use this transition property so that it kind of smooths. It doesn't just automatically change, but it does it in a very short amount of time, but it does a transition. And the key to that transition was that that transition allowed me to add a transition end event listener, so that when the transition ends, I can remove the plane class so that it gives you that nice add and remove effect. Awesome. Okay, hope that made sense. Have fun with this. Take care, and see you in the next video.